Hi, this is Ryan from xcannabis.com, and I just did a show on Carl's Cannabis Corner on May 22nd, 2011 with Des Moines Amplified.com and carlscannabiscorner.com. You can see it there. I'm just re-editing this because there was a lot of audio problems, and almost 20 minutes of the show had to do with the audio problems they were having at the studio's end, and Carl was getting feedback and stuff, so we didn't get to the full interview. On Carl's website, on Des Moines Amplified.com, he asked two questions. He says, why does Ryan support Ron Paul, the co-sponsor of a bill to reschedule marijuana into Schedule 2 of the Federal Controlled Substances Act, when Ryan says he opposes rescheduling? Now, I do know that Ron Paul supported a bill by Barney Frank to reschedule cannabis. He also, at the same time, supported a bill to fully legalize possession for consumer usage of cannabis at the same time. So both of those went through at the same time, both proposed by Barney Frank. Ron Paul didn't propose them, but he did back them. And I think that, like Ron Paul, I also supported rescheduling cannabis at one time. I do not any longer, because I don't want Big Pharma getting behind my medicine. I don't want Big Pharma putting their money behind prohibition, and I don't want them to be able to activate and use their 150 plus patents on cannabis. I think when they have vested interest where they're making money from cannabis, prohibition will get worse, not better. Just like when I was in jail for cannabis, I was in jail with somebody that was in for possession of a controlled substance, which was Oxycontin, and he had more time than me in jail. So, a possession of a controlled substance without a prescription is still a serious offense. It might legitimize the medical value of cannabis, but at the same time that gives it over to Big Pharma. So I did have a petition on the internet in 2009. Well, I started it in 2008 and it continued until about mid-2009, and then I started learning more about Big Pharma getting behind cannabis, with Sativex and Marinol and now these all these different patents on cannabis. So I decided to fight for just removing cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act. And that's when my wife and I were supporting Mike Gravel and Ralph Nader for president. I was supporting Ralph Nader. My wife was supporting Mike Gravel. And I had been supporting Ralph Nader for quite a long time, but when I found out that he was supporting the Democracy Act and Mike Gravel wrote the Democracy Act, I wanted to get behind them. And so my wife was going for Mike Gravel. She's actually who introduced me to this National Initiative for Democracy. And then, I just continue my support with Ralph Nader as he supports the National Initiative for Democracy as well. So that's, I don't trust representative government. I never have. I support the people, and that's why I work on initiatives. I don't work on House bills, and I don't trust them. I mean, after watching, SB 5073 crash and SB 5615 back in 2008, watching these House bills crash, I see what they do. I see that they try to impose more restrictions and more regulations, just like in Section 2 of this SB 5955 that he also asks about. He says, Ryan says he opposes rescheduling and opposes SB 5955 in the state of Washington. He says it's a bill to reschedule marijuana into state Schedule 2. I don't think that's true. I've read the bill. I don't see that it proposes to reschedule marijuana. But what it does in Section 2 of that bill, just like in Section 301 of SB 5073, it's the same lingo. It crosses out the doctor's exemptions from state law, in regards to cannabis, and it puts in a whole bunch of requirements and restrictions. And so that complicates the relationship between the patient and the doctor, making it harder for a patient to get access to marijuana, making it harder for a doctor to give a a recommendation to a patient. And I think that Section 301 is my biggest objection. I also think that Section 4 that talks about, collective gardens is written poorly. Talks about 10-person patient collective, but in a collective garden there can only be 45 plants, even though each patient is supposed to be allowed 15 plants. So a 10-patient collective at 15 plants should be 150 plants, but they're only granting 45 plants, and then you can only have 15 plants per tax property. So that doesn't make any sense. Why even have a collective garden if you can only have the amount of one patient's medicine at one given property? That's bullcrap. I think that's wrong. I oppose SB 5955 for a lot of reasons. Most of it has to do with Section 2 and the doctor-patient relationship. But as I understand it, that bill is dead, just like SB 5073 is dead. And I know they're working on another one. I think that one's going to die. If it doesn't die, it's really going to screw patients. I don't agree with it. Now that's different than rescheduling cannabis. I don't agree with rescheduling cannabis because pharmaceuticals have over 150 patents on cannabis, and once it gets rescheduled, meaning scheduled into a different schedule, that means it's going to be medicine only. Whereas right now it's not considered medicine, so the pharmaceutical companies can't apply their patents. They can't dominate the market with their patents because their patents don't mean anything if it's under Schedule 1. If it's Schedule 2, 3, 4, or 5, then their patents are valid. They can use that to sell their products, cannabis-related products, and then the government is infused with more resources to enforce prohibition, just like they do with opiates, with Lortab and Oxycontin and Xanax and stuff like that. So, I just don't agree with rescheduling. I think cannabis should be treated like echinacea or any other herb that grows out of the ground. I believe that it should be able to be used as hemp, which these medical proposals don't offer, and scheduling doesn't offer. If cannabis is scheduled as a scheduled drug, then it can't be used for industrial or commercial consumer purposes. It can only be used as medical. And then it's in Rite Aid and Walgreens and things, and those people compete very heavily with smaller pharmacies. That's why there's not very many small pharmacies out there right now. So I just wanted to answer those two questions because we really didn't get to those. And also, I mentioned it, I think, but the National Initiative for Democracy, you can learn more about it at www.mikegravel.us, or you can go to www.vote.org. And I have to make a correction. It's not Pennsylvania 2, the foundation. It's actually Philadelphia 2. I misspoke. I was up all night. I worked graveyards, so I haven't slept for like 30 hours. And when I got on this show, I was really tired and kind of misspeaking some things. So as I understand it, it's Philadelphia 2 that's the foundation of this Democracy Act. It's former Senator Mike Gravel from Alaska that's proposing it. Ralph Nader's behind it. A bunch of other backers are behind it. A bunch of supporters are behind it. And you can vote online for it. And, via Article 7 and the 9th Amendment, this is a valid constitutional principle to have the people making laws. It's not unconstitutional in any way, shape, or form, and it doesn't change the three tiers of government, the judicial, executive, or legislative branches of government. It just adds a fourth tier, and it helps us have direct representation in the federal level. So that's what that is. So anyway, listen to the rest of the show here. It's kind of weird because there was audio issues, but here you go. Thanks.
Oh, good. Well, I can hear you now if I lay the headphones on the table, and that doesn't mess with my head quite as bad. So let's carry on.
Okay.
You want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm not in any kind of hemp or cannabis business, but I want to be. I'm just an activist. I've been working on this stuff for about 13 years. When I started with Initiative 692 in Washington, started getting signatures for that, for medical marijuana in Washington. Just as a layman, just as somebody that, cared, and continued on for about 13 years, live in Washington when I started, and I can hear feedback now of my own self. That's weird. But anyway, I've been very passionate about cannabis and medical cannabis as well for a long time, but now I'm starting to build my house out of hemp. Here in Washington, or here in California. We moved from Washington to California because I bought some land here, and we're going to build a hemp dome. And so we're really pushing the whole hemp industry, and that's a lot of the reason why I'm supporting Ron Paul. Is he's doing this Industrial Hemp Farming Act, and he also talks a lot about decriminalizing, in every way on a federal level cannabis, which I really support. So I'm just looking for ways to remove cannabis from scheduling so that we can utilize industrial hemp, and as well as that social and consumer cannabis, and of course medical as well. So I'm just a kind of all around let's get it legalized kind of guy.
What do you think of Ron Paul's sponsoring a bill the last 4 years in Congress to put marijuana in Schedule 2?
Well, I hear what he says, and he says he wants the government out of it. He says he wants the federal government to stay out of it and to hand it over to the states for them to take care of. And I know that Barney Frank introduced what you told me about earlier today, and as far as I know, that's dead. But what he's saying now, in recent interviews, and even in 2007 when he was interviewed on Normal, he's just saying he wants the federal government completely out of it, which is how I see it. It should be a state's issue. It shouldn't be a federal issue at all.
Well, when did he have this epiphany?
Well, in 2007, he was saying the same thing he was saying in 2011, which is get the federal government out of it. In fact, I saw him in the early 90s saying the same thing.
Well, I've heard him say that for years and years and years, but co-sponsoring a bill with 4 co-sponsors saying to put it in Schedule 2 is just the opposite of that. Is he saying one thing and doing another?
Well, I guess, and I'm not a politician supporter. I'm more of an initiative supporter, and that's why we support the National Initiative for Democracy. I'd like to see Ron Paul get in because I think he's serious about removing it from the schedule. He may have supported Barney Frank's, bill, but I think that Ron Paul, as president, would remove it from drug scheduling completely, like he's been saying for 25 years. But we support the National Initiative for Democracy because I think the politicians, just like you were saying about Ron Paul, I mean, he's a doctor. He's probably in the back pockets of medicine. Who knows? But I don't like to go through the politicians to get anything done because I don't think the politicians have our best interest in mind. I think that the National Initiative for Democracy, which is proposed by Senator Mike Gravel, former Senator Mike Gravel of Alaska, I think that's, just like a state initiative process where we can approach it on a federal level and put a federal ballot initiative in place to remove cannabis from drug scheduling. And then we have industrial hemp, we have, consumer cannabis, we have medical cannabis, and it's left up to the states, I think, and I think that's a better approach.
Well, I'm not familiar with that. Let me ask you some questions about that national, whatever it is. How many co-sponsors does it have?
Well, it's an initiative, so it's just like the, initiative in Washington for Sensible Washington, the Initiative 1149. It doesn't need any sponsors. It's not a bill. It's not a House bill. It's not a Senate bill. It's an initiative. And so it's a people's thing. The people get together, they sign this petition, they get it, recognized, by a vote, and then it gets passed by a popular vote. And then we can approach it from a national level, just like we do with initiatives on a state level.
Yeah, but initiatives on the state level are either authorized by the Constitution or by a state statute. So either the Constitution authorizes the initiative process or the legislature had to enact it. How do you get a federal initiative without having any statutory or constitutional authority to have the initiative in the first place?
Well, and that's the thing about this. If you go to the National Initiative website, it's NI4D.us. You can see where the lingo comes into we the people can decide our laws. I mean, that's how the Constitution was originally written, is for the people by the people, and the articles in the Constitution that allow this, including Article 6, allows the people to make laws and change laws. And so this we don't have a national initiative process as of now, but if we the people come together in a popular vote and say we want a national initiative, it's constitutionally correct to do that. And so it doesn't violate our Constitution, and it doesn't change our 3 tiers of government that we currently have. Our 3 tiers, the legislative, the executive, and the Congress all remain intact. They still make and change laws, and the Supreme Court, can overrule those or judge them accordingly to the Constitution. But, the people can say, hey, we don't want cannabis on the controlled substances list. We want it removed. And if the popular vote comes out that we want that removed, then it gets removed. And it's, we the people deciding these laws like the Constitution the Founding Fathers originally intended.
Well, we don't have the initiative process here in Iowa. Who would count the votes?
And that's through this Pennsylvania 2 is the foundation that's taking the count right now, and I'm guessing that it would just have to go through the courts. It would have to go through the Supreme Court for some sort of, verification process.
Okay, so this would, before I could even get my vote recorded here in Iowa, since there wouldn't be anybody in Iowa willing to record that vote, it would take a court case to even get the Secretary of State to put this on the ballot so I could vote for it? Is that how it works?
Well, it's not on the state level, and you're right. There's only 24 states in the United States that have an initiative process, and that's the biggest problem that we have. That's why only 15 states have medical marijuana. Most of those states, minus New Jersey, and I'm not sure, I think maybe Colorado, have done it through, the House, through the Congress, but most of these states have done it through an initiative process, and there's only 24 states that can do that. 26 states don't have an initiative process. So that's what this is about. And honestly, I'm no politician, I'm no lawyer. What I've read from the Democracy Act, that's what it's called, is that this is something that is brought together by a coalition of people who have started this Pennsylvania 2 nonprofit group, which is taking the signatures online. You can do it online or you can do it in person. And these signatures get counted by this group, and then I guess it just gets verified, probably through the courts. I don't know exactly how they verify it, but, and the lingo of it as far as, Article 6 of the Constitution and things like that, I mean, we the people can decide our laws. That's how our government was set up in this republic that we have, is that, this is a government by the people and for the people, and we should be able to do that. And so since we can't do that, we need to find a way to be able to. And, if we depend on the states to do this, there's 26 states that probably won't, because they don't even have an initiative process. So we can wait on medical marijuana to happen through the legislature, but, most likely is it won't. These legislators have big business in their back pocket, funding their campaigns, that don't want cannabis legalized for one reason or another, whether they don't want to compete, whether it has something to do with, like what Harry Anslinger and Rudolph, or what was his name?
Hearst.
Hearst, yeah, right. Hearst, and, what they did, is to eliminate competition, is they used the legislature to do that. And that's how they do it in our legislature today. They use laws and regulations to restrict this.
Well, I'm confused because when I vote for president, I vote on a ballot that the Secretary of State prepares, and I've looked at these initiatives in states that have them, like Michigan, and the Secretary of State counts the votes. How many votes have you got? Or are you collecting votes, or you said something?
Yeah, I just sent people to vote.org. It's vote.org, and you can vote online. And no, there's no tally. I have no idea how many they have. This is through Senator Mike Reverend, who started this back in 2001. Senator Mike Reverend was a senator of Alaska, and I'm pretty confident in what he's saying. I've read the lingo. It's pretty comprehensive. There's more than 4,000 words involved here, but as far as legal authority, I have no legal authority to advise you on what the actual process is. But as far as how many votes we got, that would have to go to Mike Gravel. You can go to his website at mikegravel.us, and he's got a big page about the National Initiative for Democracy there as well.
Okay. Well, you don't seem to know a whole lot about it, but do you know who owns the website vote.org or whatever that website is?
That's Mike Gravel's website.
Oh, okay.
And then the NI4D, I believe that's a supporting group, NI4D.us. There's a video there that actually tells what the process is pretty well.
Well, I love everything you're saying, but I'm just wondering what, how close are we? How long is this going to take? Is it actually, are we going to actually see any results from it?
I hope so. I think it's our only hope. I think
but
26
you know,
states, there's no hope.
should I wait? Should I wait for that, or should I do something else in the meantime? Like, you know, should I just like sit back and it's a done deal? I'll just go to that website and put my vote in, or you know,
that's entirely up to you, Carl. Like I said, we worked on the Initiative 1149 in Washington. My wife was a coordinator for the East Side, and we collected signatures. We collected over 1,200 signatures for Initiative 1149 in Washington. So, no, we don't think that we should sit back and wait for. You know, I don't put all of my apples in one basket. That's for sure. You know, I don't wait for rescheduling.
Well, in that case, I'll go and cast my vote in favor of this.
Awesome.
But in the meantime, we don't have the initiative process here in Iowa, and you know, we can't just get the legislature to do anything for us. So I filed a petition with the Board of Pharmacy and told them that marijuana is no longer classified correctly in Iowa because it has medical use in the United States.
Right. I've seen that.
And the board rejected that petition, and the court reversed them and told them that they broke the law and that they had to reconsider it. They denied it again, and then on their own initiative, they just went ahead and held hearings across the state. And after they did that for 4 months and collected scientific evidence and had public testimony, they ruled unanimously last year that marijuana is medicine. And so now the legislature has to approve that, and they have just sat on it. They're not doing anything with it.
That's usually what I see with the legislature. It's like with New Jersey. They passed medical marijuana in New Jersey in 2010, and they're still waiting for that to be enacted. So it's been over a year, and they're just sitting there waiting for it because in these, state bills, they make them so complicated that, you need this, and this to happen before you get your rights. And just like with SB 420 here in California that happened, what was that, in 2004, they were talking about a state registry, they were talking about a whole bunch of stuff, and that's supposed to have been implemented, and it hasn't been. It's been almost, 8 years now, and it hasn't happened because of how complicated they make it. So they make our rights complicated so that we don't get them, and that's why I think it should just be completely removed from, the Controlled Substances Act. It should be treated like something like echinacea or carrots. It's about as harmful as either one of them, and it shouldn't be restricted or regulated like it's some sort of toxic, scary, going to kill you type of thing.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't know how that's going to happen if we don't do something. And so, you've got this idea with this national referendum, and I'm attacking the state of Iowa for misclassifying this plant. I mean, you agree that marijuana does have medical use, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, that's another thing we try to do. We have a T-shirt company that I started last year specifically to promote the fact that cannabis cures cancer. I lost 2 family members. My dad died of glioblastoma multiforme in 2008. My grandma died from breast cancer in 1991. And, we've got these shirts and these sweaters and stuff that we give out pretty much for free that just say cannabis cures cancer with that cannabidiol molecules structure on the front and a big patch of buds on the back, just to let people know that, there's been like 4 universities, Brown's, Harvard, I think it was UCLA, but then Southern Pacific California Medical University, all have tested and found that cannabidiol cuts off a genetic feeding path for the cancerous cells to grow and starves the cancer, and in fact kills cancer. So I'm very much on board that it can and should be used as medicine for sure.
So you would agree if the state has it classified as having no medical use and has a process where any person can file a petition objecting to that classification, that someone ought to file an objection and ask the state to reclass?
Is used in St. John's wort. A lot of different herbs are used as medicine, but they're not classified. And I don't believe that, just because it's medicine, that it should be classified in any way under the Controlled Substances Act. That's my only objection, is that when it's classified as medicine, then it's only used as medicine. You can't say that it's medicine, but also use it as industrial or.
Well, would you agree that it doesn't belong in Schedule 1?
Oh, absolutely, but it doesn't. But if it doesn't stay in Schedule 1, then it's used as medicine. The only schedule that doesn't let it be used as medicine by Big Pharma is Schedule 1. But I think when it gets rescheduled to Schedule 2, 3, 4, even 5, it still says that it's used for medical only. I've read these schedules, and like I say, I'm no lawyer, but when it says that it's medical use only in all of these schedules, then I think that restricts the more beneficial use of cannabis, which is, like hemp.
So you think it would be wrong to object to Schedule 1 then?
Well, no, I don't think it would be wrong to object to Schedule 1. I just think it would be wrong to reschedule it as anything else.
Well, my petitions ask the board to remove it from Schedule 1, and it doesn't say where they should put it.
Yeah, I think they're heading that way anyway. Like I showed you in the email I sent you, the DEA has been asking for rescheduling too. I don't think there's much that we can do to influence them because they're already focused on that goal of rescheduling.
So you think I should just stop doing what I'm doing?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to be proactive. I just think that if it gets scheduled as scheduled anything but one, we're going to see Big Pharma get their money behind prohibition, and I think prohibition already has enough funding, but when there's more funding from Big Pharma, I think that's when it becomes complicated.
Can you hold that thought, and we'll take a break, and we'll pick this up after the commercial?
Sure.
All right, thanks. All right, Ryan, you still there?
Yep.
All right. I can prove that marijuana has medical use, okay? And that proves that it doesn't belong in Schedule 1.
Right.
But Schedule 2, 3, 4, 5 all say accepted medical use in the United States, and of course we have plants like, I think you mentioned some, it's hard for me to hear through the way I've got this sound set up here, but anyway, we've got plants that have medicinal use that aren't on any schedule, correct?
Right.
All right. So my argument that marijuana has accepted medical use in the United States is only good for one thing, to get it out of Schedule 1. It doesn't address Schedule 2, 3, 4, 5, or none at all, because my argument is that it has medical use, and the only schedule that says it doesn't have medical use is 1. So my argument only has that limited value of getting it out of Schedule 1. It doesn't go anywhere else after that. It's wide open. They could pick 2, 3, 4, 5, or none at all. So my question to you is that am I wasting my time doing this even though I can win it?
Well, I guess my question to you is, and I said that you're not wasting your time, being proactive is good, but my question to you is, doesn't it scare you if they put it in Schedule 2?
Pardon me?
My question to you is, doesn't it scare you if it gets reclassified as Schedule 2, 3, 4, or 5, or are you okay with that?
No, I'm not okay with that.
See, I'm not either, and that's what, leaving it wide open, and that's
well, is
what
Schedule 1 better than 2, 3, 4, and 5? Let me ask you that.
It is if Big Pharma doesn't get behind it.
Well, don't give me an if. Just tell me, is it better or worse? Is 1 better than 2, 3, 4, or 5? Yes or no? Not if.
Well, that's not as simple as that.
Well, then you can't answer the question.
Well, if it's anything but Schedule 1, there's 150 patents that says it belongs to Big Pharma and nobody else. So if it's Schedule 2, Big Pharma utilizes their 150
If we put it in Schedule 2, you think people are just going to stop using it and stop growing it? Are you kidding?
No, I just don't think that they'll be able to use it as a marketable product like they do now under state legislation. I think that once it's rescheduled as something else besides Schedule 1, then the federal law will still trump the state laws, and in regards to being medicine only, it will be pharmacies, and Big Pharma, it'll be like Rite Aid and Walgreens selling it, and they'll put their money behind putting the little guys out of business. That's what I think.
Isn't that what pharmacies do? I mean, gee, isn't that what the pharmaceutical industry does? I mean, you wouldn't expect them to change color on this issue, would you?
Right, that's exactly it. That's why I wanted to see removed from scheduling completely.
Well, me too, but how are you going to do it?
Well, there's one option, you know, and like I said, there's very few states that can do a ballot initiative process to even make it medical marijuana, but there's that National Initiative for Democracy option, which I
how long is that going to take?
Could be 2, 3, 4, 50, 60 years, but, you know, we've been waiting for 72 so far, and nothing's happened, so, you know, it's a matter of, you know, doing something.
Well, I'm not waiting for that. I live in Iowa, and there's something I can do now, and I'm doing it.
Well, I don't oppose it. I think the DEA's got you beat. They already released a memo saying they're going to reschedule it. So, I mean, I showed you that memo.
No, they didn't. They said they're going to reschedule THC, and only if it's in a gelatin capsule and sesame oil.
That article that I sent you was talking about rescheduling. They reneged on it, but they've been talking about it for a long time.
Well, what they're talking about is moving extracts from marijuana and specifically approved pharmaceutical products into lower schedules, which is new. They haven't argued, you know, this is a new thing that they've come up with. Before, they only allowed synthetic THC. It certainly begs the question of where they're going to get these extracts from marijuana if they don't allow anybody to grow it.
Right.
So
it would be like Canada, where the Canadian government grows it.
Well, I'm not sure where GW Pharmaceuticals grows this for Sativex, but it's either in the United Kingdom or in Canada, but it's certainly not grown in the United States. Sativex is in phase 3 clinical trials with the FDA right now.
Isn't there 6 patients left that get cannabis from the University of Mississippi on a federal
4.
Program?
4 of them, and two of them live in Iowa, and they're co-plaintiffs on my lawsuit.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I think the government is growing it. I think our government could provide, cannabis for these pharmaceuticals.
Well, they grow it in Mississippi, but they won't supply enough of it, and the University of Massachusetts just applied for a license, and they were granted the license by a DEA administrative law judge, and the administrator reversed the decision and said there will only be one supplier, and they only supply marijuana through the National Institute on Drug Abuse, and the National Institute on Drug Abuse screens the applications and grants favor to those trying to show that marijuana is harmful, and they don't release enough marijuana to the people trying to show it's good for something to get the research done that's needed.
Yeah, I want more research done. Like I said, I used to run a petition on the petitionsite.org to get it rescheduled. Back in 2008, I've only gotten 325 signatures, but I've been passionate about that too. I didn't know about these patents back then. I'm just a layman. I have really not a lot of education. I'm not anybody to listen to as far as authority on law. But I was very excited to see family and friends get healed from cancer, and I was tired of losing people. I lost my father and my grandmother, and it was devastating. So I was very excited to see research get done, and I wanted to see it get rescheduled so that it could have some legitimacy as medicine. But then when I saw big pharma getting behind it so so strongly with 150 patents, including one of them from the U.S. government. When I saw that, I'm like, man, none of these big companies want to see us get cured.
Well, how did those patents occur? I mean, this is already water under the bridge.
Yeah,
don't you say that Schedule 1 has given Big Pharma total control already? I mean, moving it to Schedule 2 is like, the whole purpose of having it in Schedule 1 was so they could get all those patents and get ready for the change.
I think that, I don't mean to cut you off, sorry, go ahead.
Those patents are anticipating that marijuana will be moved into Schedule 2 like coca and opium, and we know that coca and opium are only legal for one thing, the manufacture of FDA-approved pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
So this is no mystery what's going on. This is the way the whole entire structure of the thing is set up this way. And, of course, the intent is to put it in Schedule 2 to keep a monopoly on it for the pharmaceutical companies. But they've already got the monopoly on it.
No, they do, but they can't utilize it under Schedule 1. You know, I think that when they're making money off of it, they'll be more ready to fund prohibition, like they do with Lortabs and Oxycontin. I mean, I was in jail for cannabis, but my cellmate was in jail for Oxycontin. And it's a legal drug. It's a Schedule 2, but he was still in jail for it right next to me. He was serving more time than I was. I was serving, well, at that time, only 4 months. He was serving 8 months for possession of a controlled substance. So when it's a controlled substance, it doesn't mean less people go to jail. It just means there's more money for prohibition from Big Pharma that have vested interest. You know, under Schedule 1, they don't have a lot of vested interest because their patents don't mean anything. They're not making money off of it. But when it's Schedule 2, they're making money off of it. Therefore, there's more money for them to donate for campaign contributions and such.
Let's say this proposal that the DEA made on November 1st to put natural THC in Schedule 3 as long as it's in a gelatin capsule and sesame oil, in other words, a generic equivalent of Marinol. Let's say that scheduling goes through and they actually do that. Doesn't the big pharma have total control over a drug made from marijuana and it's still in Schedule 1 and yet they can legally manufacture it and sell it?
I thought you were saying they wanted to put it in Schedule 3.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
They want to put naturally extracted THC in Schedule 3, but only if it's encapsulated in a gelatin capsule suspended in sesame oil, which is the formula for Marinol.
Yeah, that kind of scares me. I mean, I just think, you know,
that scares me.
It scares me only in that I have, you know, friends that are doing great to provide patients the medicine they need, you know, in different formats and lots of different, you know, needs that they may have. And, you know, there's a lot of state jurisdiction under the 10th Amendment and Article, you know, 6 and stuff that, you know, gives them some padding and obviously doesn't give them total protection, which is why I want to see it changed federally. But I just see that, you know, all these people that are helping patients with their medicine will have more resistance from the government when Big Pharma is controlling it. I just don't want to see Big Pharma controlling it. I just worry about them. The way that, you know, my little brother died when I was, you know, little. I was, 25 when he passed, and he was 16, and he was taking prescription medications that are supposed to be safe and government approved and whatever, and he overdosed and killed himself on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. And, you know, cannabis doesn't have that threat. You know, cannabis doesn't have that threat until Big Pharma gets in and starts messing with things. And I don't want to see Big Pharma messing with my medication. I certainly don't want to see them behind controlling my medication. That's the biggest worry that I've got, is that they're going to control my medication.
Well, they're in control of a lot of other medications. Hey, can you hold that thought? We'll come back after the break.
Sure.
All right, we are back. Ryan, the last comment I made was like, doesn't the pharmaceutical industry control all the medicines? I mean, but let me ask you this. What is the requirement for something to be in Schedule 1?
That it has the medical value, it has high potential for abuse.
That's it. Those are the only two criteria for Schedule 1.
Right.
What is the criteria for Schedule 2?
That it has high potential for abuse, which it doesn't. Obviously, cannabis does not. The drug or other substance has currently accepted medical treatment in the United States, currently accepted medical use with severe restrictions, and the abuse of the drug or other substance may lead to severe psychological or physical dependence, which obviously cannabis doesn't.
I only remember the one that says high potential for abuse. The only difference between Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 is accepted medical use, and the difference between 2, 3, 4, and 5 is the level of abuse potential.
Right.
So if marijuana were put in any of the other 4 schedules, I would file a petition to have it removed on the basis that it doesn't have that potential for abuse.
That's a good idea. Why don't we just go forth with removing it from the Controlled Substances Act? Would it be unquestionable to just file a petition to remove it? Is that possible?
Well, you can't predetermine the outcome. You have to let them step into it first. They are the experts. They're the qualified experts that have to decide what schedule it goes in or whether it goes in any of them. You have to let them do that. And if they don't do it right, you have the right to challenge them. But you can't predetermine the outcome. What qualification do you have to predetermine the outcome?
Well, I mean, there's 7,000 years of history that shows that cannabis hasn't killed anybody.
Yeah, but you're not authorized by law to make the decision. They are.
Right. Well, I mean, you know,
well, let them do it. And if they don't do it right, file a petition and say that you screwed up and I want this fixed. That's what I'm doing. I'm not predetermining the outcome. I'm attacking their decision and saying you made the wrong decision. If they make another wrong decision, I'll attack that. I'm not predetermining the outcome. I'm not telling them I'm the qualified expert and everybody should schedule everything the way I say to schedule it.
Well, I'm just saying don't schedule it at all. I'm just saying let's put it in the same class as another medication that we use, like echinacea, which is an herb that grows out of the ground. You know, and I think
that's really too difficult. It's much easier to attack them for making a mistake than it is for me to say that I know the answer.
I don't know. I guess
attacking them and catching them making errors.
I honestly think you have a lot of great knowledge and you're doing great. I just think that if it was me that had that knowledge and if I was able, you know, in the same way, maybe I am. Maybe I'll figure this out. But I think maybe petitioning them to remove it from the Controlled Substances Act may be another avenue. And you're talking about how long will it take? You know, how long will it take for the Controlled Substances Act?
I would never win that. What I won here in Iowa is I said marijuana has medical use. And I won that. They agreed with it and said it does. Now I'm waiting to see what they do. If they don't put it in another schedule or remove it entirely, I'm going to file a lawsuit. And as a matter of fact, they've already had the opportunity to do that, and they blew it off. They didn't do anything. So I'm going to court. And I'm going to force them to... And the court... I'm going to ask for a declaratory order, a declaratory judgment. And the order I'm going to ask for is that marijuana no longer meets the statutory definition of Schedule 1, and it's not in Schedule 1. Where does that leave it?
Well, it could be 2, 3, 4, or 5.
No, it leaves it nowhere. The court can't schedule it. If it's not in Schedule 1, it's not in any schedule.
But weren't you petitioning the DEA, and don't they have the ability to reschedule it?
Well, I petitioned the DEA, but they denied the petition, and I lost the appeal on it.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I lost the appeal is the appeal court said I didn't have standing to make the argument in the first place. They never ruled on the merits of it.
In Washington, they're working on that same process. I know that they're petitioning the pharmacy board to reschedule that in Washington.
Yeah. I know they are. I've read the petition, and it's full of holes. It's not well written.
I agree. And I just worry about that. That's my thing. And like I say, I'm probably not the best person to give any legal advice, but I just think that Big Pharma scares me enough to keep it out of their hands, whether that means Schedule 1 or removing it completely. I just don't want to see it be backed by Big Pharma. I don't want to see prohibition reinfused with money and resources by prohibition.
Well, my intent is to keep arguing with them. Whatever they pick, I'm going to argue with it and say it's wrong until they end up taking it completely out of the schedules. And I can only do that one argument at a time. I can't make any other arguments. I need to make the argument marijuana is medical use. That's simple. I can win that. I've already won it. As soon as I win that, I'm going after the high potential for abuse argument. It doesn't have a high potential for abuse. When the Board of Pharmacy here reviewed the evidence, they said this doesn't have the same potential for abuse as anything else in Schedule 2. And then they recommended Schedule 2, so there's the error right there. But I can't catch them on that until they actually put it in Schedule 2.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, it's going to take a long time, just like you were saying about the National Initiative for Democracy. I mean, it's one fight at a time, and it could take a year for each fight, or 2 years, or...
True, but I've already beat them really hard a couple times, and like right after I won this decision, the media just went into a frenzy here. The Des Moines Register took a survey and found 64% of Iowans support medical marijuana. Then the CBS television network affiliate did a poll, and they found 62%. And then the University of Iowa did a poll. Bang, 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 all in the same year after the Board of Pharmacy ruling. Then the Iowa Medical Society joined on. The AMA joined on. the Iowa Pharmacy Association joined on, and the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. If I can keep scoring like that, there isn't nothing stopping me. I'm going forward with this. With that kind of success rate, I can't wait for some national initiative. I'm going to start pounding them now. I'm beating the crap out of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say wait. I'm just saying I don't like the rescheduling part. That's the only thing that scares me.
Yeah.
Rescheduling.
Well, a lot of people have copied my work around the country, and they don't understand it, and they think that I'm asking for rescheduling, and so they go file these petitions like that one in Washington, and they don't make the same argument I'm making. They misinterpret the thing the same way that you're saying, and that's what they file. So yeah, I agree. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was part of the national rescheduling case in 1988 where NORML stipulated that marijuana had a high potential for abuse and asked the DEA to put it in Schedule 2. And I filed an objection to that. I was in prison when I filed that objection, and I wasn't able to attend the hearing, and the judge signed an order saying, well, everybody at the hearing stipulated to this. And I said, well, I wasn't at the hearing, and I object.
Awesome.
Anyway, we're out of time. So thank you very much for being my guest. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Hey, one more thing. Can I just interject? Article 7 describes how the Constitution itself was ratified, and the Ninth Amendment states how the people can change the Constitution. That's basically how it works with the National Initiative for Democracy. I was just looking that up while we were on break. But hey, thanks again for listening to my rant, and I love what you're doing, man. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Give us your website just quick before we go.
Sure, it's www.xcannabis.com, xcannabis.com.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Take care, and thanks for all your work.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Later.
Paul, you say that the federal government should stay out of people's personal habits. You say marijuana, cocaine, even heroin should be legal if states want to permit it. You feel the same about prostitution and gay marriage. Question, sir, why should social conservatives in South Carolina vote for you for president?
Well, they will if they understand my defense of liberty is the defense of their right to practice their religion and say their prayers where they want and practice their life. But if you do not protect liberty across the board, it's a First Amendment type issue. We don't have a First Amendment so that we can talk about the weather. We have the First Amendment so we can say very controversial things. So for people to say that, yes, we have our religious beliefs protected, but people who want to follow something else or a controversial religion, you can't do this. If you have the inconsistency, then you're really not defending liberty. But there are strict rules on freedom of choice of this sort, because you can't hurt other people, you can't defame other people. But yes, you have a right to do things that are very controversial. If not, you're going to end up with government that's going to tell us what we can eat and drink and whatever. You know, it's amazing that we want freedom to pick the future, you know, our future in a spiritual way, but not when it comes to our personal habits.
But Senator, are you suggesting that heroin and prostitution are an exercise of liberty?
Well, you know, I probably never used those words. You put those words someplace. But, yes, in essence, if I leave it to the states, it's going to be up to the states. Up until this past century, you know, for over 100 years they were legal. What you're inferring is, you know what? If we legalized heroin tomorrow, everybody's going to use heroin. How many people here would use heroin if it was legal? I bet nobody would put to him, oh, yeah, I need the government to take care of me. I don't want to use heroin, so I need these laws.
I never thought heroin would get applause here in South Carolina. Governor John...